Gammo, it's Radical from Board Game Co, and today we're doing a Should You Back It on Blood Rage Valhalla from Tycoon Games. We are headed into the 24-hour mark on this campaign. We are down to I guess we have 8 minutes till 20. We are heading into the 24 hours and 8 minutes left on this campaign. I was hoping to do this a little bit earlier, but it got down to the wire, and so here we are. In fact, I almost decided not to do it at all, because if you look at my last two back and not to back coverage of the campaign, my opinion hasn't changed significantly, even with everything we know, even with the additions and everything. Not a lot has really changed. But also, I told you I'd try to do one, and so for those of you who've been asking for it, because there haven't been a bunch of people asking for a dedicated video on Blood Rage Valhalla, here you go. And so let's go ahead and dive into this with let's start off, where do we start off in this one? This is kind of a little bit all over the place. Let's start off with what Blood Rage Valhalla is, some of the upsetness and controversy around it. I'll also talk about the fact that I've played it, which again, some of the stuff you may have heard already, but I have to remember that some of you have been waiting for this video, seeing my other coverage, and some of you are diving into this video for the very first time, so I kind of want to give everything to everyone. So let's start off with Blood Rage and Blood Rage Valhalla. Blood Rage is a game designed by Eric Lang, put up by CMON, and it's one of the better rated area control games, very well loved. It's from the Rising Sun Blood Rage Ankh trilogy, and arguably the opinions between Blood Rage and Rising Sun, they go up and down which one's generally rated the best. But Blood Rage is a well received, well liked game. Tycoon Games bought the franchise from CMON, and they're putting out Blood Rage Valhalla, the spiritual successor. It's a sequel, but it's also more just Blood Rage 2.0. There are tweaks and changes, maybe step forwards, maybe steps backs, but it's basically Blood Rage. If you are familiar with Blood Rage, this is going to have 90% of the core of Blood Rage, and then 10% of the peripheral details changed, which has also been some of the reason for some of the upsetness. We'll get to that soon. But overall, Tycoon Games put this out, they launched the campaign. The campaign has definitely had a lot of people backing it, and we're about to cross $1 million over here, but there's also been a lot of people upset about different things. Before we dive into that, I'll say that I have played the game. You can check out the playthrough. Well, I played 2/3 of the game. I played the first 2 rounds out of 3. Unfortunately, that's not an issue on them, that's an issue of the time slot we scheduled. I booked extra time for this, and nonetheless, we still managed to go over. We had technical difficulties. Long story short, I just couldn't continue. This is my fault. Because of me and my schedule, we couldn't fully finish the game. That's the only reason you haven't seen a completed gameplay of it, although I do believe they went back and did another gameplay. You can check that out as well. But having played 2/3 of the game, and being a huge fan of Blood Rage, a game I've played many, many times, I put out a bit of a first impressions on the game. It is very much a first impressions. You can watch that if you want the full everything on it, but the short version is, as a huge fan of Blood Rage, I think Blood Rage Valhalla is excellent and a lot of fun. The only hesitancy I have is I can't possibly speak to the balance of it. The way the game is structured allows for more crazy things to happen, which I overall enjoy, but also can have the downside of balance issues. I just don't know with 2/3 of a play under my belt. So it's more a caveat on my opinion, because I don't want to tell you, hey, I love this game, it's the best, and then 5 plays in, I'm like, wow guys, turns out I was wrong. It's crazy, super unbalanced. So it's not an opinion that it's unbalanced, it's a caveat that it's too early to talk about balance. Blood Rage is a game that I think is fairly balanced. There are some strategies that are a little stronger, but my first few games of Blood Rage, I definitely didn't even think it was balanced, because you see some of those crazy strategies play out, and it takes time to realize that everything is a crazy strategy that can play out. But the short version, there's no short version. Blood Rage Valhalla, it takes the core of Blood Rage, and it remains 90% the same. The things that are different, we're going to get into all the campaign stuff soon. The things that are different are going to be that you're not going to have an age 1, 2, and 3 deck. Instead, you're going to have gods that are in the game, and the cards are going to self-adjust based on the age. That allows for a much higher degree of variability game to game, depending on the gods you include and how that will play out, and it allows for each rage to not be as structured and as static as the original game. It's also taking place in Valhalla, so it changes up the board. The board is less of the perfect circle with center spot. There's a few more edge pieces, a few more things that don't always connect each other, so it does change up the actual area control aspect of the game. There's some other rules changes as well, small differences as far as the way you draft monsters, things like that, the fact that you can't, that you don't immediately put things onto the board as you get them, some changes to the units, so there are some other changes to it, but the core structure of Blood Rage is very much the same. And again, if you want more information on all this, I highly recommend you watch my full first impressions video, because I go into a lot more detail. I'm just trying to catch people up for those who didn't watch that and may not bother going to watch that. With that said, that brings us to the campaign. This is all just catching you up on everything. The campaign launched, and there's a lot of pushback. Pushback on some things that I understand, some things that just don't bother me, but, everyone's entitled to be bothered by the things that they want to be bothered by. And first of all, and this is all before we get into the campaign over here, some of the pushback has been around the expectation of Blood Rage Valhalla being a much different game as opposed to 90% the same, which that's just an expectation thing. I always assumed Blood Rage Valhalla was going to be mostly the same, because otherwise just make a fourth game in the series. Like, you have Rising Sun, you have Ankh, you have Blood Rage, why not make whatever you want to call it, as the fourth game. So to me, Blood Rage Valhalla was I always assumed it would be mostly the same. Granted, it was more the same than I thought, but I thought it'd be like 80% the same, and it's 90% the same, so my expectations weren't really upset there. But people who wanted it to be a different game and who are looking at this like, wait, I have to pay all this money to go ahead and get in on a game system that I basically already own? Yes, if you want Dwellings of Eldervale versus Andromeda's Edge, sometimes you have to pay for that new aspect. If you want, all the, well, I guess, I was going to say Cthulhu May Die, but that's actually more of a direct, that's more of expansion content than anything else. Sometimes when you're paying for a new version of a game, the newest iteration, you have to make a decision as to how happy are you with the current version. Do you love that game enough to own both? I mean, this is from Tycoon Games. They've done Everdell and multiple Everdell spin-offs that have been mostly Everdell, but also been good games. So my standard advice always applies there. If you're mostly happy with Blood Rage and you don't want to spend $100 plus to get more stuff, you're fine. You're not going to be heavily missing out on Valhalla. I do think Valhalla does add nice things to the game, and for me as a huge fan of Blood Rage, I definitely want this in my collection. But if you're not a huge fan of Blood Rage, or if you're happy enough, or if you're just trying to be money conscious, I don't think you super need Blood Rage Valhalla. It is mostly Blood Rage. There's also upsetness around the art. This is, again, something that didn't personally bother me, but there's upsetness around the sculpts and the various themes aspect, the thematic aspect of where things feel in place or not. And that's something that, again, depending on the campaign, I have been bothered by things like that way back when Kemet, when the first Kemet reprint came out, I didn't love the idea of having Cthulhu gods in there. That felt out of place to me. It happens to be, or CMON. CMON has generally had some campaigns. Like, I remember when White Death launched, I kind of expected it to be a different setting, and I was surprised by that, and that threw me off. It always comes down to expectations. For myself, I just didn't notice or care enough here, but I respect the fact that I have cared when I have noticed or cared, and so people, again, if you're bothered by that, is what it is. There's not going to be a lot of changes to that. There's also a lot of upsetness around the board. Again, this is all before we dive into the campaign. I'm sorry for how long this is. I didn't plan the order on this. But we also upsetness around the board. The board for Blood Rage was very, I'm trying to see if I can find a picture of the original board. I think they've mostly gotten rid of it at this point, so or they've blurred it out. Well, I guess here's the board. Here you can see the original board in this GIF over here. You can also see it in my video. I threw it up there. There's a lot of upsetness around the board in the game, making it feel like, I think Cluedo, Blood Rage Cluedo was like the common joke being made, that it basically looks like a clue board. And I understand this. This is one of those things. This is a little bit on me. When I first saw the board when I was playing the game on TTS, my first impressions was a little bit shocked of how out of place it felt. Like, and I was polite about it, I didn't say anything. I was like, oh, okay, and like I was a little thrown off by it. By the time I was done with the game, I didn't even think of it anymore. And that's a little bit on me, because in my review, in my first impressions, I showed the board, forgetting that I had not liked it at first, but by the time I played it, I kind of, I had adapted to it mentally, and it was no longer even bothering me 2/3 of a game into Blood Rage. But, that said, many of you didn't have that opportunity, and many of you might well hate it even if you are playing the game. Everyone's going to be a different little magical snowflake, so I can't guarantee how anyone's going to be. I can just say I was bothered, and then I wasn't, and I have more on that, by the way, because I actually prefer the second iteration of this board, not the final one. But either way, that's basically where there's a lot of stuff around the board. To a large extent, Tabletop Tycoon or Tycoon Games did listen to that in the updates. If I go to update, I want to say, was it 14 or a New Home for the Heroes? Maybe it's this one. I think it might have been this one over here. They had basically a poll showing you this new version of the board, which kind of takes the same core concept, but then throws it on a more magical, snowy background. And by the way, personally, this is my favorite iteration of the boards we've seen so far. I actually like this one. Again, I'm probably biased by having already played through it to a degree and enjoyed my game of it, but this is my favorite version, and I hope they manage to incorporate this, because I actually really like this, and I feel it actually makes it stand out and be different compared to the newest iteration of the board, which, personally speaking, I feel just looks like a worse version of Blood Rage. This actually feels different, versus to me, and I thought the comments would be like ripping it apart, but this is the newest iteration of the board. It's a work in progress. They're going to be changing things. I thought the comments would not like this, but the comments overall seem to enjoy this one. They're like, this is a step in the right direction. This is good, and to me, this kind of just looks like, okay, well, it just looks like Blood Rage. It's one of those few times that I actually want it to be different from Blood Rage, and it's the same, but this is all personal opinion. I'm just kind of updating you on things. But overall, this seems to be the current work in progress. It seems to be currently what's being well received. Again, I like the most the second iteration. I don't know if I would have liked it the most had I not played through the game. Who knows? This is all, we're just reading into alternate timelines at this point. That's going to be another one of the big complaints around the game. And then another big complaint is going to be the fact that this isn't a CMON campaign, and it's not being run the way a CMON campaign is. And what I mean by that is, to a large extent, there's not the same levels of exclusives and extras and all those things that you would find in a typical CMON campaign, which means this has one thing in common with a very standard CMON campaign, which is everyone's very upset at the beginning. This is common for CMON campaigns in general, and it happened here as well. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not just because it's a CMON game. Tycoon games also, they did like that $1 pre-order, which is something I've been very vocally against in the past. A lot of other people don't like it. So they started off to a certain extent with people who are already upset about certain aspects of how this thing was run. But then they dive into that CMON campaign issue where it's like, this isn't worth it. And then if you watch a CMON campaign, by the time you get to the end, more often than not, people are like, oh, here's all the stretch goals that were always going to be here all along. And those numbers ramp up towards the end as people see all these other reasons to go ahead and jump in on it. And because this isn't a CMON campaign, this is a Tycoon Games campaign being run differently, that's not here. And so that means that there are a lot of people who are like, why am I getting this on the campaign? Why not just wait for retail? And we will get into some of those things. To some of you, the answer will be just wait for retail or don't get it at all. And some of you, the answer might be go ahead and get it here. We'll dive into all of those things now. That's just kind of catching everyone up on all the things going on. There might be other complaints as well that I didn't heavily either remember or see, one of those two things, but that's kind of Blood Rage, my own impressions, Valhalla, the campaign, and then my own 2 cents on things. Also, by the way, you can get Rising Sun on Ankh here as well, including a lot of the other content from the previous crowdfunding campaigns. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into this. We have Blood Rage. Blood Rage returns with an epic sequel. We talked about this already. Again, the core game is mostly the same. There's differences in the card structure as well, by the way. You draft 1 less card in the first round, but you also hold on to more cards round to round. You don't necessarily lose the cards as strongly, so there are big changes in small ways. The quests change. There's no longer a track to how many people you have on the board. Instead, there's a track for how many points you get for quests, which is a nice change. It ramps up as you go if you invest into it and pillage in the right areas. It's no longer called pillage. It's called something else in Blood Rage Valhalla. Over here, we have Hlin's Warden, a first printing exclusive. And for the most part, there's not really a lot of exclusives over here. For the most part, if you're looking at this as why get this now versus getting it at retail, to a large extent, the answer is going to be retail. Retail is totally viable for you, although I don't think the price is bad on the campaign, to be very clear. Like, I am very critical of what I view as not a good price on crowdfunding. And I don't think that's the case here, but I also don't think it's a great price either. I think it's not a great price and it's not a bad price. It's possibly saving you money. It depends on where it goes on sale or how much. We'll get to the prices soon. We have the Road to Valhalla expansion. Again, giving you more characters, ram cards, 3 new gods. That, by the way, is everything for me. The gods are the biggest aspect for me because it adds new cards and it shifts up the gameplay dramatically. I mean, this is one of those things where, unfortunately, the nature of the gameplay means that, as much as I think Blood Rage Valhalla will give you iterative gameplay, I think the Road to Valhalla expansion is a big extra that will give you more ways to mix things up, because now you have 3 new gods, which means you can mix up Hela with Loki and Thor. You can mix it all together and you have significantly more combinations through the addition of the new gods. We have the Divine Devastation upgrades, 8 god miniatures, giving these giant god miniatures, which this one seems drastically overpriced. We'll get to that soon as well, but it does seem like this is one of the things where there's been pushback on this one, and I very much agree on that. Maybe they're giant god figures, and I'm just not understanding the scope and scale, but when I look at the various things you can get in this campaign and the price points for those various things, it does seem like that is a big cost for what you're getting relative to other gameplay content that you're getting in the game. We have the Gates of Valhalla over here. We have $85 on a retail price point of $125. We're going to start diving directly into prices already at this point. And it's worth noting that in general, retail prices are just that. They are a tagline. They're not necessarily given to them. In most cases, they're not going to be sold for that amount. A retail price generally is going to be 70 to 80%. If you're looking at buying something online, if you're looking at Game Nerds, at the Miniature Market, at any of these sites, wherever you are, and this is a little US-centric the way I'm talking about this right now. I don't know what it's like elsewhere, so that always changes the equation. But if you are looking as a US buyer over here, generally the price point of a game is going to be between 70 to 80% of the MSRP, of the listed retail price. So I don't know the exact math on that, but what's 4/5 of 125 is going to be 100, so 80% would be basically around $100. I think that sounds about right. No, it'd be a little less than that, because 125 broken up into $25 chunks would be $25, would be 4, 5, yeah, $100. It'll be $100 if it's 80%, a little bit less than that. So $85 is a good price point relative to the 80%. If you go down to the 70%, it's a little bit more par, but still is a decent enough price. So again, if you're looking at the price point of what this could cost, sure, it may well be cheaper and if it goes on sale at different points, but just directly comparing this to retail, I think you are getting a reasonable enough price, possibly on the good side, possibly on the bad side if you're comparing it to eventual sale prices that'll eventually, like at some point it'll be on sale for less than $85, almost certainly. Although we will take into account shipping as well. Hall of Heroes bundle, $225 and $340. These prices do get better as you go in theory, at least as far as the ratios go. So the more you are getting, the more you can justify it if you're just comparing retail to retail. But also a lot of people here have a lot of the content. So the Bifrost bundle, a lot of people are going to have some of that content and not necessarily need it. And so you're looking at this and you're like, this is the best deal, but also I have all this stuff. I don't need new stuff. Although I will say my copy of Blood Rage could use a new box. It is worn down. The Hall of Heroes bundle is giving you those 3 games, the 3 initial things, the game expansion, and then the giant god miniatures. The Bifrost bundle gives you previous content for Blood Rage, including exclusive content as well from previous campaigns, so you can check that out if you want all the expansion content, all those things. And we have a complete Pantheon collection, which I will not be going into the prices on all these, but this one's going to give you for $8.99 for a retail of $14.70 for giving you all the content for the main 3 games in the series, or at least all the big content for the main games. Do you miss something for the original packaging? Get each title repackaged. Okay, great. Add-ons. Add-ons. So this is where Blood Rage Valhalla, again, Road to Harlem, Divine Devastation, again, that's $80, that just seems like a lot. The Mudgooder miniature for $15, and then the individual price points of, again, each individual thing as you break down. But there are some more things that were added, although they have them down here. So we have Blood Rage Last Stand. Is this the Last Stand? What's the Last Stand? Let me go to the add-on so I can see this over here. Because I think the Last Stand is what I think it is, which is, yeah, Last Stand exclusives for $35. Why does it say $60? What am I missing here? What am I missing? If we go to here, Last Stand, this I missed when I was going over this earlier. Last Stand says 60, retail 35. Oh my gosh. Tycoon, you made a mistake over here. You made a mistake. The retail price is supposed to be higher. You swap these two numbers. This is 35 and not 60. Okay, I missed. I was like, I don't remember there being an expansion that was $60 here. Yeah, Tycoon, you only have a day left, so I don't know if it's worth fixing it, but this is 35 versus 60. You might want to fix that. This is what it's supposed to be over here. So small little boo-boo there. Not a big deal, but like if someone saw that, that might be it might have been a thing. Anyways, what are those? Over here, this is based on popular requests. So one of the things that was a request is that people can get some of the extra stuff without going all in on all these things. And they have these options now. They have the Last Stand exclusives over here, giving you, again, the Stag Clan, Hilly, the alternative monsters. For people who missed out on the original content, we have Rising Sun, the comic book extras. We have Ankh, the Divine Offerings over here. So you do have extra things that were added to the campaign as extra content players can get their hands on without going all in on all of the stuff. So that's, and they have a STL. They have the miniature, oh my gosh, okay, they gave the exclusive deal for $0, interesting. They gave that, that's good to know, I missed that one over there. And then the Blood Rage and Blood Rage Valhalla Neoprene playmat over here, it's going to be a double-sided playmat for the 2 games, so $25, that's an updated playmat, because if you already have Blood Rage, you may have the playmat, I have the playmat, this is going to be the new one though, double-sided, so that's a freebie for people who didn't get on Blood Rage, which again is part of the problem, because the people who are the most upset are people who are passionate fans of the series, at least seemingly. That's basically what you have for the campaign over here. Pricing for the most part on these things, if you wanted to get where's the individual add-ons. So Blood Rage Valhalla Road to Helheim, which I do recommend over here, for $60, and Blood Rage Valhalla for $85. That's going to be $145, plus of course shipping, to get a good game, but it is like, it's not the cheapest. I mean, you can get copies of Blood Rage used at this point for like 60, 70 bucks, and so you're weighing up twice the price point, brand new for new stuff, expansion, all that, but it certainly is not the cheapest to go ahead and dive into it, and you're not getting the usual carrot that CMON does have, where you have a whole bunch of extras being added as those stretch goals, and that's going to be a factor in things. And then of course shipping, because we have to have shipping over here, shipping is going to add to that. At the Gates of Valhalla is $20, which means your $85 cost for Blood Rage is really $105. Immediately it is no longer worth it. Immediately you're now looking at, okay, great, I'm paying in advance, and I'm paying more than I would pay at retail because I have to factor in shipping. It's already no longer worth it. Now that's not as true. Once you get to the Hall of Heroes bundle, if you wanted all of that, then it's not nearly as bad, because the Hall of Heroes is $225 on $340. Hey, Counselor, I know I'm doing a video. I know some people like you, but some are interrupted. You want to come? No, you want to play. I'm sorry. I gotta go back to them. Okay, just say hi. I'll be with you in a few minutes, okay? Sounds good. Thanks. Anyways, so Blood Rage Valhalla. At the Hall of Heroes bundle, $225. When you add that, what was it, $25? I think it was more than that. It was more than that. $225, $35. $35, it brings you to $260 on a $340 price point. Again, the problem with that, $260 on a $340 price point, I don't know the exact math offhand, but that is roughly what you're looking at, 80%. Suddenly, because of shipping, the price point drops from a good price point to a reasonable price point. The base game alone, it's already a bad price point. Adding in extras, it's a reasonable price point. It's not necessarily great. And so that's where you do move into the pricing on this campaign, unless you want some of the exclusive content, because they cover this in the FAQs. But for the most part, the content is going to be directly available. You are getting it at a good price and earlier than others. That's what they claim as far as the reasons to back this. The good price is an okay price. The earlier than others, if that's true, nice. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. If you're a big fan of Blood Rage, you might want your copy while other people around you are all getting theirs. You might want that. That's definitely a factor for some people, not for others. And the good price is just a good price. It depends on where you are. It depends on what the prices will be. This is all a prediction. Again, the usual disclaimer on this stuff that because of tariffs and because of all those things, everything is a question mark nowadays as far as how things will change in between a crowdfunding campaign and the final game. So these are all predictions based off of what if things remain level, which is definitely not a guarantee. Keep that in mind. But it's also not a guarantee if you buy it now. The increased prices you can get. There's always these things in play. It just there's no longer guarantee. So should you back it, have moved from here's how things normally work to here's how things used to normally work and sometimes still do and sometimes still don't. But with that said, price point on this, it's okay. It's a decent price. It's not a great price. The more you want, the better it is. If you want all the Blood Rage content, that's a pretty good deal, even with the shipping. Overall, that's a pretty good deal. It's not a CMON level detail with all the extras and all the exclusives and extras that you normally get. This is not a game that I will confidently say will hold its value because I'm usually looking at the giant amount of exclusive stuff that you will never see again. And the only thing they kind of said is exclusive are those new things over here. Those three things: the Last Stands, the comic extras, and Divine Offerings. Those will have limited availability. They didn't even say exclusive. They just said limited availability, which is less available than everything else. And so, should you back Blood Rage Valhalla? Here we are 20 minutes into the video. Should you back Blood Rage Valhalla? Let's break it down to two different things. First of all, as far as the quality of the game, I can't speak for you and your taste. I can't. What I can say is I'm a huge fan of Blood Rage, and I definitely like Blood Rage Valhalla a lot. Bonzonator, who also played in the game, is a huge fan of Blood Rage and also liked Blood Rage Valhalla a lot. So far, the people I know who've played Blood Rage Valhalla, who like Blood Rage, are fans of the game. It's a very limited pool of people, but nonetheless, it's a pool of people that does mean something. It doesn't mean you'll like it, but it certainly means something, assuming, of course, you trust that we're not just like influencer shills telling you how much we like the game, which also, in the case of Bonzonator, like, she was in the comments on a different video being like, I actually really liked it. Like, it's one thing to talk about the game on camera. It's another thing to like go in the comments fighting. Like sometimes when you are media and you are looking at things, sometimes there's people who are like, you don't actually like that thing you say you like. Which I mean, I get it, but like sometimes there's a desire to fight back. But no, like believe me when I tell you I like the thing. And so like that's up to you. But I have two people who are in myself and Bonzonator, who are in the camp of believe me when we tell you we like the thing. It doesn't mean you'll like it. It does not. But we like the thing. We like the thing we played. So first of all, as far as the quality of the game, it's mostly Blood Rage. Absolutely true. I think that most Blood Rage fans will like it. I think it's a good game. I think, again, the only pause I have is on balance. I just don't know, because the game, the way it opens up to more possibility of balance being a concern. Outside of that, as far as should you back it from a price point standpoint, or should you get it now, any of that stuff, honestly, you do you. I don't think the price is bad. Well, don't get the base game. The base game alone, once you factor in shipping, just wait for retail at that point. Unless you are fine paying $5 to $10 more to get it now, instead of having to wait and wonder and all that. Just know that you're paying that. Know that you're paying that premium just for that peace of mind of not having to think about it, which is up to you. It's not what I would do or recommend, but hey, if you want to do that, do you. If you are getting more content, it is more reasonable to get more content just because of the way shipping gets more absorbed into it the more stuff you get. But that said, I don't think the price points here are amazing. If you do want the exclusive stuff, that, sure. Then back the campaign, because that stuff they're saying will have limited availability. The way they said it does not mean no availability, but it is going to feed into that FOMO aspect. If you've been waiting for that Blood Rage exclusive content for who knows how long and you want it now, do the safe thing. Do the safe thing and back it. I'm not saying it's the thing that makes the most sense. I'm saying it is the FOMO thing. It's the thing I would do if I wanted that content. I'd be like, nope, I need that extra content now, and it might be cheaper available. It might be cheaper down the road, but it also might be much more expensive, and so I'm going to hedge my bets and do that now. So this is not oh my gosh, you absolutely should back this game. Not by a long shot, but I also don't think it's crazy to back the game either. I think the prices are reasonable. If you're a fan of the game, just the only thing I'm saying don't do is don't buy the core game alone. That's not, and I'm not even saying don't. I'm saying I wouldn't buy the core game alone. More than that, go ahead and get it if you want. I don't think it doesn't make sense to do so, but also I don't think it makes massive amounts of sense to do so unless you want that exclusive content. So, should you back it? Kind of up to you, really. I don't think it makes a huge difference either way. That's Blood Rage Valhalla. That is a should you back it on Blood Rage Valhalla. Like I said already, nothing changed significantly from my previous to back not to back coverage, but this is in a lot more detail with a lot more of the stuff, and also with the changes they have so far, which they have those again. They have the, you know, they have the newish board, which I really liked. I liked the second iteration of the board, but people did not. People, I get it. It is what it is. I will ask them for a custom neoprene plane. I'm not going to ask them. I should ask them. Maybe I'll ask them. We'll see. Anyways, until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.